TF. This is our video series called So You're New to Pump. What we're going to talk about today is covered in other videos, but I just want to mention this just in case this is the only one you're catching because of the title. How to change the velocity on your marker. Now, this is geared towards the guys, again, that are coming from the semi-auto world. Almost exclusively in the semi-auto world, you're changing how the velocity works on your marker based on the regulator input, based on the pressure of the input from the regulator, okay? This is exactly opposite for the pump industry. Almost every gun out there doesn't change its pump gun out there, doesn't change the PSI, the feet per second out of the gun based on the input of the regulator. In fact, if I could give one piece of advice to all CCM owners and certainly pump owners, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a big thing, man. People think they got to take it apart. They're used to taking semis apart and tinkering with them and stuff. Don't do it. Don't do it until you've got a problem or it's time for preventative maintenance, you know? This regulator is a fairly sealed thing. As long as it's regulating at the proper feet per second and it's recharging well, leave it alone. Just don't touch it, okay? Now, with that said, how do you change the velocity on the gun? You know, if you're coming from the Tipman world, a lot of the early Tipmans had, you know, the air coming in. There wasn't even a regulator, so you weren't changing spring pressure. You were changing, you know, how much air came out the gun. That's not the way it works on a pump either. If you're coming from the semi-auto world, especially electros, let's say you're coming from an axe, you're going to walk up to the chronograph, stick a wrench in here, start pulling the trigger, turning it up or down, get the right feet per second, and walk on the field. That's great. That's not how it works in a pump. How you're going to mostly change the feet per second, the velocity on a paintball marker that's a pump paintball marker, is you're going to change it by adjusting spring pressure. Okay? So what's going on inside of here, now that we magically have our valve sitting in front of us, or bottom tube sitting in front of us, what's going on inside of this tube I've laid out basically on the table down here. And this is how a lot of pumps work. Well, all Sniper series pumps work this way. It's different for Phantom and things like this, but the spring idea is what I'm trying to get at here. This is the valve. You've got pressurized air behind this valve. When you hit the valve with the hammer, it opens up the valve, allowing air to come up through this hole, enter the bolt, and push the paintball out, okay? So this pressure stays constant on this side of the marker, all right? What's changing then, because we're changing just our spring pressure, is just how hard the pump hits this valve and how long it stays open based on how much we compress this spring when we pump it. So when we screw in this inner velocity governor, it's just compressing the spring a little more so that when you pump it, it's got a little more force behind it and it's hitting this valve just a little bit harder, okay? It's not the case that the valve gets hit at the same pressure at every time in most electro semis and you just turn up the pressure or turn down the pressure to let more air out or less air out. You know, there's more nuance than that, but you get my point. You're leaving the regulator alone and you're just changing the spring pressure here, okay? So get used to the idea, just because, you know, now that you're new to pump, that really what you want to do is at first just start to mess with this spring pressure to adjust your velocity. And how that goes on a Chipley is in various ways, but you take a wrench in the back of the marker and you turn it up righty-tighty or you turn it down lefty-loosey. Okay, a full turnaround in a circle is about 35 psi coming out of the gun if you've got good paint to barrel match. And if you don't, go back to that video, okay, which I'll link right now. So get used to the idea of only changing spring pressure. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't think it's the input into your gun when you've checked the tank and you've checked the regulator. You've just got to alter what's here, okay? All right, thanks. Bye.